Alright, welcome back to Adobe Animate CC. In this tutorial we're actually going to create some animation. So here we have left off where we were working before, the zombie banner. And we have the stage set up. Last tutorial and kind of went over the workspace a little bit. So in the Creative Cloud library, it's got this little weird symbol here. I have some images in here. And the one I'm going to drag out is a vector smart object. So I'm going to drag it out to the stage here. And what will happen is I'll get this import option box here. So as you can see, I can collapse this little arrow here, but basically you can select individual layers if you have a couple different layers. I mean, pretty much it's just one. But if I had multiple layers, I could select whichever ones I want. Down here at the bottom, I can convert layers to animate layers or a single animate layer or keyframes. I'm going to leave it at the default, the animate layers. You have the option to place object at original position. You can import as a single bitmap image, and you can bring it in and adjust the size of the original image, which is 2000 by 1000 pixels, which I don't really want to do. I want to keep my original stage at 720 by 300. So basically I'm going to keep everything the way it is. Now there is a few advanced options in here that you can see here, and you can click on show advanced or hide advanced there. Basically all you're going to do is click import here, and it doesn't look like it's on the stage here, but it actually is. If I hit command or control minus on a PC a couple times, you'll see the text is down here. And what happens is, and I'll hit command plus or control plus to zoom in, the text was a little bit bigger and it came out to the side here. So sometimes if you don't see your graphics as you bring them in, maybe they're perhaps too big. You have to zoom out to see them. So the first thing I want to do with this is I actually want to scale it down a little bit. And I'm going to do that using the free transform tool here, which has a hotkey of Q. And I'll click on that. And basically I'll grab a corner. If you hold the shift key, you basically maintain proportions as you scale inwards. So I'm thinking, let's see, grab the hand tool to kind of reposition. Thinking a little bit less, a little bit smaller still. So let's scale down just a little bit here. Maybe about there. That looks probably pretty good. I kind of want to fill the whole frame here. Now, the first thing I want to do before I do any kind of animation, which is what we're going to do today, is I want to kind of align this properly. So I'm going to go to the align tools. It actually has these vertical sort of bricks here in the align options, which I'm in the classic workspace. If you don't see it, any windows, though, you can go to the window option here and go down to the align command, and poof, there it is. And the main thing you want to have, if you're aligning things to the stage, you want this little box checked. And then I'm going to click on the horizontal and the vertical align center, basically. So now I know this is centered here properly. So in order to animate in anything in Adobe Animate, you have to first create what's called a symbol. Symbol is essentially a container that wraps around anything that you bring in, whether it be a graphic, text, images of some sort, whatever you want to animate. If you basically, even if you draw out regular shapes here in Animate, you have to create a symbol out of it in order to animate it, essentially. So the way you do is you select the object that you want to animate. I can select with the black arrow or the free transform tool. Go up to the modify option here and go down to convert to symbol. And this brings up the convert to symbol box, and I'm going to first title this. So I'm going to title it zombie text, and we can adjust the registration where basically you want the registration to be in. I'm going to keep it in the center here. I am going to choose movie clip, but you have a couple options here. Button, basically you create an actual button with states, kind of like on a website. The graphic basically is very similar to movie clip, except that it is more limited in terms of what you can do in terms of animation. Movie clip essentially gives you the most options, so I'm going to leave it at the movie clip. There's an advanced section here, but really nothing in here we need to know at this point. And pretty much we just click OK. Now you'll see here in the Properties tab that text has changed to a movie clip, and it has an instance of zombie text here. So in order to animate, we're essentially on this layer 1. I'm going to double click on the layer to rename it. I'm going to call it zombie title. And then if you don't see your text, your titles here, perhaps you need to adjust the the timeline here. You can go right here right at the front here and basically scrub out a little bit. So what I need to do to animate is I actually need frames here. You'll see there's only one keyframe here. So what I'm going to do is go down to about 80 frames here. And what I'm going to do is essentially right click and go down to insert frame. And what that'll do is it'll create essentially a timeline where I can drag this slider back and forth. Now it hasn't created a keyframe yet, but just basically blank frames here. With animation, traditional 2D animation, you need two things. You need keyframes for the action, and then you need in-between frames to animate. Luckily, the program does the in-between frames for us, but basically if we had a bouncing ball, for example, wherever the ball would start, say it started at the bottom here, and then it went up to the very top, those would be considered the keyframes, so the very top and the very bottom. Once it came down again, that would be another keyframe. As it went up, that would be another keyframe, and then it would just basically continue there as it went down further and further. And basically, you had your master sort of animators who would work on those keyframes, and then you'd have sort of lower animators, people who are basically learning the craft, who would be the in-betweeners, who would animate those in-between frames. And it was very labor intensive for traditional 2D animation. If you look at any old classic like Walt Disney animated film, you'll see how labor intensive it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially create our two keyframes and allow the program to do itself the in-betweens, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to select this last frame here, right click, and go down to Insert Keyframe. And you'll see it's a little black dot on each of these. So essentially we have two keyframes. So the end keyframe, I essentially want the text to be exactly where it's at. The beginning, though, I want this text to be off to the side. So I'm going to hit Control minus once, or Command minus on a Mac, and to zoom out. And I'm going to click on this text and then hold the Shift key and drag it off to the right, essentially. So it starts off to the right. And as I click on these keyframes, you'll see, hey, that sort of snapped to the center there. And then if I click on this one, it's back to here. And that's what it does. The keyframes essentially remembers the those key areas of animation. Now, to animate in between, we need our in-between frames. So how do we get there? Well, you click anywhere in between here, and you just right-click, and you have two options. You have Create Motion Tween and Create Classic Tween. The Motion Tween we're not going to utilize right now because essentially HTML5 doesn't cover everything that you can do with Motion Tween. Classic Tween is the better option. So we're going to choose that one. We're going to click on it, and boom, we have this arrow that basically drags from one point to the other. And as I drag the current time indicator, you can see how the text is now basically sliding across. In fact, if I hit enter or return on a Mac, I will see animation going across, which is pretty cool. Now, if I select the text, you'll see lots of properties in here. If we want to what's called easing in and easing out the animation, I have to essentially, you'll notice that the animation is very stiff the way it drags in. I click anywhere inside that arrow of the animation and I have the properties here, and there's this ease option. What I'm going to do is drag this 0 to 100, and now what will happen, it'll start off sort of fast and then slowly zoom in. And it's got a little bit of a nicer animation. It's basically easing in and easy out. So that just makes it a little bit nicer, in terms of the animation. So that's the basic introduction to the classic tween and Adobe Animate CC. In the future, we'll continue our animation here, but until then, we'll see you until next time. Cheers.